Hey everybody, welcome to Slash Bash, where today I am bringing you another Choosing Beggar Reddit video. If you are new to the channel, then subscribe and click on notifications so you don't miss out on the fun. In our first story, a choosing beggar gets banned from 3 fitness centers. Let's jump right in. Here's the obligatory "it's not my story," but told to me as it transpired over the past few weeks by my dad, with the showdown happening this morning. Also, buckle in because this is a long one. So my family owns a fitness center in my town. We are a smaller town, but there's another fitness center in town, as well as fitness centers in some of the nearby neighboring small towns too. We have a full-time manager who is awesome. My dad does not micromanage her, he's got another full-time job. She's good at her job, so he just lets her do her thing. Act 1. A few weeks ago, this wonderful specimen of mankind wandered into my dad's office wanting to speak to him about the fitness center. No problem, my dad says, so takes him into his private office and asks what it's about. The man, let's call him Mr. Trout, proceeds to rant about how our new manager won't let him join the fitness center. My dad, being a fair dude, calls up the manager to get to the bottom of the issue. Well, she had not denied him membership. He just refused to pay the full membership cost and wanted her to discount him over half of our full cost. When she told Mr. Trout she obviously couldn't do this, he got angry and she asked him to leave. My dad hangs up and tells Mr. Trout that we couldn't charge him less than what our normal rate is, nor would he overrule our manager. Well, Mr. Trout was not a fan of this. He started yelling at my dad about how dare we charge that much for a membership anyway. He's the owner, so our manager had to do what he says, so he, my dad, should just tell her to do it. The other fitness center in town charges way less. They are smaller and have way less equipment and offerings, etc. My dad doesn't appreciate when people yell at him, obviously, so he simply offered, well, why don't you go join the other center then? Well, they kicked me out! Red flag. But it's not like you need to charge that much. I know how much it takes to run one of these. I should just buy yours and I'll run it. My dad said he was alternating between anger and laughter at this point and just told him, well, first of all, if you can't afford a full membership, I doubt you can afford my gym. However, it is not for sale. The whining kept going for a while, but my dad eventually got him to leave. For the sake of shortening this story, I'll skip the 3 other trips to my dad's office where Mr. Trout alternatively begged, whined, and threatened to be led into our fitness center. Most of which my dad didn't even see him, but just had his secretary kick him out. Act 2. My dad had gotten real sick of this guy, but our manager, being the kind lady she is, was weakening her resolve and wanted to give him a chance if he was willing to pay the full membership cost. She mentions this to one of our trainers, who then breaks down and tells her that apparently this guy had been a member in the past, like pre him getting banned from the other gym, and had harassed her, so our previous manager had kicked him out. The manager then immediately calls my dad, who is furious and ready to pounce the next time Mr. Trout shows his face. Of course, he does a few days later. So my dad all too happily tells him that we had a reliable source that provided information that he was harassing people in the gym and that he would not be allowed in our gym ever again. Cue all the excuses. It wasn't me. Why are you picking on me? Who was it? I have the right to face my accuser. My dad says he doesn't have to give him any information, but he should know that we film everything in our gym and there's not a single spot in the gym that isn't covered. The guy gets pale and quickly leaves. End of the story, right? Ha! Act 3. Manager calls my dad again. A neighboring town gym called her. Mr. Trout tried to join their gym. He refused to pay their full fee and complains it's too high. They ask him, well, why are you joining here anyway? There's 2 gyms in our town. Well, both of those gyms kicked me out. They quickly denied him a membership and asked him to leave. So, where does he go? He comes yelling into my dad's office. My dad is done at this point, beyond done. I don't think Mr. Trout got 5 words out before my dad goes off and tells him in no uncertain terms that he is now trespassing, and if he doesn't get out of the office, the cops will be called, and that if he ever shows his face again, the cops will be called. He tries to protest, but my dad pulls his most classic line, "Am I clear?" Mr. Trout tries to protest. Dad says, "No, I said, am I clear?" Mr. Trout, with what I can only imagine is the fear of God running through him at this point, having been on the end of that line a few times myself, quickly answered yes, and my dad said, "Good, now get out and never come back." He quickly left. Now only time will tell if I get the satisfaction of seeing the cops getting called on him. Story number 2 shows us a choosing beggar homeless guy who just knows our OP has recycling in his backyard. A little backstory. I live in a state that has a bad homeless problem and also has a bottle deposit, so collecting bottles and cans is big business for the homeless here. My family collects our bottles and cans as one of my son's chores, and the money from the return goes towards a vacation fund for a trip to Disneyland. Also, I honestly don't have a lot of sympathy for the homeless in my state who can work. I was on my own at a very young age, was homeless for a while, but picked myself back up, got an education, and now have a good job and a home. A couple months ago, I'm home alone and there's a knock on the door. I look through the peephole before answering, and there's a guy in his early 20s on my porch looking at a cell phone while waiting for me to answer. Soon as I start to open the door, he quickly puts it away into his pocket. He has a bicycle up in my lawn towing a baby carrier packed with bags of bottles and cans. He proceeds to give me some sob story about being homeless and not being able to find work, and he has kids to feed. He asked if I have any spare money to give him or bottles and cans. I tell him I don't, but I could probably throw together a food box for him and his family. He tells me, "Oh, sure, that would be great," but he obviously sounded hesitant. I ask him to wait on the porch. I go into my kitchen and grab a box and put some canned soup and vegetables in it. I decide to throw in some fruit snacks and other kid snacks in case he really does have kids. While I'm packing it all up, I hear him call out to me asking if I'm sure I don't have any cans, like not even in my backyard or anything. 2 things about this concerned me. One is yes, I did have bottles and cans in my backyard, but he wouldn't know that unless he had been in my backyard. And the second was that I shouldn't be able to hear him. I asked him to wait on the porch and close the front door. He had opened my door and walked right into my living room. I told him, no, I don't have any for him, and I hand him the box asking him to leave. He asks me again if I would just check my backyard and see if I have any bottles and cans. He just has a feeling that there are some back there. I tell him again no while ushering him outside. He looks into the box of food I gave him and asks, "Don't you have any adult snacks?" At that point, I just laughed at him and told him to go away, and I don't want to ever see him around here anymore. I ended up finding the box of food at the end of the block with everything in it except the fruit snacks. A few days later, it's the weekend, and my wife and son are home alone while I'm at work when someone starts pounding on the door. My wife can be a little skittish at times and didn't want to answer the door, but he started shouting through the door, "Hey, I know you're home. I saw you pull up. Your husband said I can have the bottles and cans in your backyard." My wife knew this was a lie because I had told her about my encounter with this guy. My neighbor, who is a great guy, He's retired and spends his time watching over the neighborhood, heard all the commotion, and came over to see what was going on. He told the homeless guy to leave or he is going to call the cops. Choosing Beggar exchanges some heated words with my neighbor, but ends up leaving. Fast forward a few days later when no one is at home. My neighbor catches the guy coming out of my backyard with a few bags of cans, and he was even taking my big garbage can we put them in before we bagged them. My neighbor chased him down and got them back. We now have the gate to our backyard padlocked. This is John from Slash Bash. Thanks for watching. If you've enjoyed the video and want to see more of them, then please hit that subscribe button. We'd love for you to drop a like, share it with your friends, and we will see you in the next one.